Last week we did a brief overview of the Torah. This week we're going to take a deeper dive into it. These first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible are really interesting because they're written over the course of at least 500 years. Some of the Torah dates from around 950 BCE, while other portions come from 550 BCE or later. The oral tradition that it draws on is even older, dating from 1200 to 1000 BCE. The events themselves, from the time of Abraham until the ultimate arrival of the Israelites in Canaan, cover roughly the 800 years prior to 1200 BCE, so starting about 2000 years before the Common Era. In other parts of the Bible, the work of different authors is easy to distinguish because it's put into separate books, like the 4 Gospels or the letters of Paul. The writings of the Torah seem more like what you get on a shared Google Doc, where each author makes edits and contribution, and the end result is a melding of what everyone has put in. But because it's existed in its current form for at least 2,500 years, scholars have had a lot of time to try to parse out the contributions of various sources. The oldest source is called the Old Epic Tradition and includes rich storytelling, likely informed by stories that had been told orally to each new generation. Some of this tradition comes from the northern kingdom of Israel, and some comes from the southern kingdom of Judah, which we know because they use different names for God. Then, starting around 650 BCE, during a time of religious reform, a tradition arose that scholars call the Deuteronomic tradition because it's seen a lot in the book of Deuteronomy. Sections from this tradition include long sermons and a heavy emphasis on the importance of being faithful to the covenant with God. Finally, starting around 550 BCE, an additional priestly influence was infused into the document, emphasizing religious practices and roles and things that priests were especially interested in, like theology and genealogy. Priestly material provides the overall structure of the final form of those first 4 books, with threads of the older traditions woven onto that structure. This week, we're going to be looking at some examples of these different sources, while we also try to get a feel for the overall narrative.